Welcome back to another episode of Fired Up for Friday. This Friday is March 27th, 2026, and I have a jam-packed Friday full of new releases that you have to hear. And as always, we have the best album of last week, but last week was so damn good, we have 2 albums of the last week. It's like double the pleasure, double the fun. So make sure you stick around to see what 2 I picked. If you know me, I'm pretty sure you know what one of them is. The second might be a surprise. I don't know. It was a surprise to me because I didn't think I'd like it as much as I really did. So stick around, you'll see what that is. And most importantly, I want to thank the bands, the labels, and the PR for sending all of this heavy over that I can share with you. And even more important than that, thank you for hanging out with me. And make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of this new heavy dropping. Without further ado, let's see what got me so fired up for this Friday. Scotland's James McBain is the one man behind the Blackened Thrash project known as Hellripper. And Hellripper unleashes one fierce album in Coronach off of Century Media Music. And I've been waiting for Coronach for quite some time. I knew the promo was coming, but it couldn't come fast enough. And Coronach is a roller coaster ride of riffing that starts with one swift rager, and very little is slowing Hellripper down as he rips through 8 tracks in just under 45 minutes. And I'm hoping this roller coaster comes with more than just a lap belt. And Hellripper's been on my radar for about the last decade or so. And I absolutely loved the last full length, Warlock's Grim and Withered Hacks. And I feel like Hellripper built upon the successes of Warlock's Grim, as Coronach is a step up in both the writing and the execution. And while speed has been the one constant element on all Hellripper albums, it seems that some use of doom and other sparsely used atmospherics help create some drama behind the music, a sense of impending doom, which elevates this album from good to great for me. And like I said, don't think that the introduction of some doom into this music is gonna slow Hellripper down at all. And as much momentum as this album has, is there anything that can slow down Hellripper? But I'm thinking, no, what the hell can slow down Hellripper? Each and every song is solid on Coronach. But I believe that the sum of all parts is greater than each individual song. Because just like a roller coaster, it drops, it rises, it twists, it turns. And instead of some banks and some rolls, you got some blackened roll. Give me a helmet and let's go! With lyrics that weave Scottish tales and folklore into what already is a scary ass ride. I've had the lead single, Kinheil, on repeat for the last several months. And I'm finally stoked to have the entire collection known as Coronach. This isn't a one and done trick pony, as I see myself listening to this on steady rotation. And hopefully you will too. I hope you enjoy this album as much as I did. And I hope I pronounced everything in this video right. As I mentioned in an interview with James, link here, I sat down with James to talk about Hellripper, Coronach, Warlock's Grim, his side projects, so many other things under the Hellripper banner. Make sure you go over and check that out. Finish watching this first. I don't want you to miss all this heavy. And I'm giving this one an 89. Almost flying into the A range. Make sure you don't miss this riff fest. I have a punk and thrash album bordering on chaos. Acidosis took 20 years to polish out this rough and dusty gem and release it as their debut full length in Arrival. It's finally arrived. And it walks the fine line between punk and metal. Arrival started as an old school MySpace track. Do you guys remember MySpace? While hanging out in the punk and thrash arenas, Arrival conjures up memories of bands like Night Demon and Haunt, or maybe some Paul Di'Anno era Maiden. Depending on how your ears are tuned, it could be punk, it could be metal. But being that I love both, I was in from the moment I pressed play. And just in the spirit of those early punk albums, Arrival's a short 9-song album that clocks in at just over 26 minutes. But what it lacks in time, it makes up for in groove and catchiness. Written in their youth, about struggles with topics like betrayal, political themes, and internal conflict. Sometimes sounding similar to Anthrax, sometimes sounding like the punk band Negative Approach, and all the time kicking some ass. And I couldn't get the Negative Approach comparison out of my ears. Acidosis has a song, it's catchy as hell, called Tied to the Tracks, and I pictured Negative Approach album cover where they have the girl tied to the tracks. Made it really easy for me to fall in love with this album, as I've been listening to the Negative Approach since I can't remember, I'm old. Acidosis has plenty of hooks sinking into these ears, and Acidosis did a great job of letting their arrival feel like something familiar, as it takes those classic sounds and builds upon the successes of yesteryears while combining all these sounds and themes, making it their own. And with this album being written and saved for so long, it shows that good music, and in this case particularly, good writing, can stand the test of time, still being punchy and as pleasing as I imagine they would have been 20 years prior. For fans of early Metallica, early Megadeth, early Maiden, I think this will also please some of the bands I mentioned earlier, like Summerlands, Night Demon, Haunt, and similar thrashers like that. Who cares who you think it sounds like? Go listen to it. Tell me what you think it sounds like. I think it sounds like a kick-ass album to me. Now that Acidosis' debut finally arrived in the Arrival, I'm giving it an 81. Rarely does the name of a band accurately describe the contents inside the packaging of a new album. A doom band that has slow tempos and might actually lose a race to a real slug, as this crawling doom album lurches forward at the speed of molasses. On their newest full-length, Deceit and Misery, on Road to Masochist Records, with the descriptive word iron placed before the snailish tempo in their name, it conjures ideas of cold and weighty riffs, Sabbath-inspired tones, and slow churning grooves. Production leaves a little bit of grit on the riffs, and it's perfect for this style of doom, piling on more weight in an already saturated tone. Vocals reek of sincerity, and especially on my favorite of the 5 tracks, Die the Same, which might be the best way to go, getting stoned with the devil himself. What else could be more of a quintessential doom subject? Time feels like it almost stands still, with soulful clean singing that helps inject emotion into this album. Deceit and Misery feels dark and heavy, yet provides some peace, almost like being a solitude in the sound. There wasn't much in the way of complexity, but this simplicity made the songs feel that much heavier, as the fuzzed and distorted riffs just wash over you like a bath of sound. The album Deceit and Misery crawls at times, almost like a funeral procession of darkness and dread. And after countless listens, I kept going back and listening to more. But don't think it's because this blew right past me. It was just that good of an album. With all this Deceit and Misery going down, I'm giving this one a 77 because Iron Slug didn't trick me in the least. I loved it all. I took a chance on listening to something I was sure that I wasn't gonna like. I know my tastes pretty well. I know what I like and what I don't. When I pressed play on Lili Refrain's newest full-length, Nagalite, I started questioning all that I believed to be true. And I felt like a character in a movie, listening to this experimental sound. It sounded more like a soundscape to my life, rather than the 200 beats per minute that I'm usually dining on. While not heavy in the sense of distortion or crushing riffs. This is the progressive metal equivalent as the painter, Bob Ross, creating beauty through simplicity. Lili Refrain takes listeners on a beautiful and creative journey through twists and turns, rise and falls, all through 4 movements of beauty, contrasting the horrors of war with the tragedies of humanity. As beautiful as the music is behind the show-stopping vocal performance, it's hard to remember that this is all being backed by a beautiful and dramatic soundscape. And while it feels dark in all the right places, the future looks bright as hell, and especially if it sounds like this. This reminds me of a metal Enya with some darkness and a bit of heaviness behind it. Enya was huge when I lived over in Okinawa, and this album sounds just as huge and expansive. And like I said, I thought when I pressed play, I would never like something like Lili Refrain. And while I was a bit apprehensive to give this a try, I'm glad I did. I found it to be one beautiful creation. So much so that Lili Refrain constructed a magical 87. Baltimore back alley derelicts and Total Maniac have released their sophomore album in Love Overdrive, which is an interesting culmination of punk attitudes, thrash metal feels, street swagger, and that retro 80s flair. Mixing classic guitar tones from bands like Midnight and Venom in your typical metal back alley street activities. Total Maniac ain't walking no ladies home from church unless they're robbing them, while leaning more towards today's skate punk sound and less of that Blackened Thrash sound that dominates thrash today. Love Overdrive is catchy enough to worm its way into your ear and hang out there for at least a couple days, if not weeks. At least it didn't mine. And even though the songs are written about themes that will definitely land you in jail, Total Maniac manages to approach such dereliction with a bit of humor, making Love Overdrive one fun listen. It has that throwback feel of that 80s Judas Priest sound, but it has the benefits of modern production, while still maintaining that razor-sharp edge on guitars. And while the guitars do sound like Venom and Midnight, the vocals don't. They're a much cleaner approach, and do a great job of helping to establish that image of that throwback sound. I wish the guitars would have been turned up more in the mix. When is there enough guitar? I always want more guitar. While this seems like a bit of a lower score, Total Maniac didn't invent anything or blow minds doing something new. However, Love Overdrive is a fun little ode to excess, and if anyone struggles with moderation, it's me, drinking my way to hell and to a 72. I've been to Florida several different times, and it feels like a different country to me. The air's chunky, the heat was oppressive, and the asphalt was so hot it felt like it was melting me from the ground up. There was these thick ponds of water called swamps, and they have these animals in it called gators, which are like from the era of the dinosaurs. Why does anyone live in Florida? I'll tell you why. Because the Florida Thrash and Death band, Intoxicated, has a brand new full-length coming, titled The Dome. And The Dome sounds like everything I just described about Florida. This is another killer release off Redefining Darkness Records. And only 3 months into 2026, it seems like every week I'm yelling out Redefining Darkness's newest release. They had a hell of a year for bangers. Intoxicated's The Dome screams Florida, as it has that old school Florida death metal sound that you and I both love. But Intoxicated takes that Florida death metal sound, injects a ton of thrash feels, making that blend of Florida death metal that much more satisfying. Anytime you add thrash to something, it's gonna get better. What's more important than thrash? Intoxicated are some old school Florida death metal legends, and they've been playing together so long, this is one tight ass album. My favorite part about The Dome was the fact that it could switch grooves, tempos, speeds, and even genres from thrash to death on a dime. The only thing that was constant was the saturated guitar tones that I absolutely loved. And drums must have been acting up because they got beat worse than I did as a kid. The bright leads that just melted my face and ears. For fans of the Florida classics, Obituary, Death, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, and so many other Florida legends, head over to Redefining Darkness and snag your copy of Intoxicated's The Dome. I think I'm going to as soon as I'm done filming this. I gave this an 85, but now that I'm staring at this album art behind me, I'm thinking it might have been higher. This thing was badass. I love a good cover song, especially if it's covered by a metal band, and it's a song that I happen to know well. And what started off as some one-off covers long time ago, way back in 2002, with Seal's Crazy and the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams, turned into one full cover album 20 years in the making. After 2 decades of fans begging and pleading for a covers album, Iron Savior offers the world their newest full-length, Awesome Anthems of the Galaxy. And while I may disagree with the definition that Iron Savior uses for awesome songs, Iron Savior most definitely improved most, if not all, of the songs that they covered. Iron Savior covered those pop rock songs that your parents used to listen to while driving you to your Aunt Irene's house for a family reunion. And everybody dreads Aunt Irene. It's like an hour drive and it's all terrible songs. Crushing the classics like All I Need Is a Miracle, Relax, Take On Me, and I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. But where Iron Savior really shines is the songs that they did vast improvement to. Some of these songs were unlistenable before Iron Savior covered them. For example, She's Like the Wind, Against All Odds, and the deplorable I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight, where Iron Savior actually made these songs sound good, which I thought was impossible. And Awesome Anthems of the Galaxy has more of like a hard rock, power metal feel to it, giving this covers album a fun and playful feeling. However, Iron Savior's Serious as a Heart Attack, these songs sound great, unleashing one album of quality covers. And this is for fans of either that soft pop rock classics or good cover songs. And while I didn't find many of these songs awesome before Iron Savior got a hold of them, they definitely changed my mind on quite a few. And I scored Awesome Anthems of the Galaxy a little bit lower than I would of some original composed music. So on some of these covers, Iron Savior was forced and locked into a certain song structure. And to be honest with you, I think Iron Savior liked a lot of these songs a lot more than I did. But Iron Savior took these terrible songs and turned them into a 75. It might have been an 80 if they would have picked good songs to cover. Not one of the songs they covered was thrash. The 80s thrash was mind-blowing. I'm sorry, I just love thrash. All kidding aside, this is a solid album even though pop rocks isn't my thing. And now it's time for Album of the Week. Like I told you in the intro, we're doing co-albums of the week. March 20th had so many good albums dropped that I picked two. Two bands that have been very important to me for quite some time have both dropped albums on the same day. If you know me at all, or you happen to follow me on social media at all, you know I'm a giant fan of Exodus, who dropped a punishing album in Goliath. I felt with so much love for Exodus and so much personal bias, it wasn't fair to choose them for Album of the Week. I think I want to do a longer, more in-depth review of that full album because it was so good. Don't you agree? So I chose another album from a band that changed my ears the very second I first discovered them. I remember a Sergeant Butler that I was stationed with in Recon Battalion back in Camp Lejeune way back in the years 2001, 2002. We used to illegally download and rip CDs into like a mixtape format. And that's how we discovered music way back in the day. Sergeant Butler introduced me to two bands on a burnt CD. One being the post-punk band Thursday, and the other being Poison the Well's Opposite of December. The first song that I heard off of the Opposite of December was Slice Paper Wrists by Poison the Well, and it grabbed me fiercely. The Opposite of December ruled the sound waves back then, and so did Tear from the Red, the album that Poison the Well released following The Opposite of December. Those two albums soundtrack some of the wildest, rowdiest nights that I can remember, and probably quite a few that I don't remember too. So when I saw them releasing a new full-length titled Peace in Place, I was beyond curious and intrigued. Did they still have chemistry? Did they still have force? Did they still have momentum? And most importantly, is this album even good? Well, of course it's good. Otherwise it wouldn't be in the Album of the Week section, now would it? Mixing in some sparsely melodic moments to soften some of the more heavier themes and heavier sounds, it helps gives this album a bit of a groove while still maintaining the weight that's not only from the music, but from the subject and themes. And some of these weighty themes are betrayal, dissolutions of relationships, your usual Poison the Well type topics. Peace in Place felt a bit more expansive and melodic than I remembered Poison the Well. But just like anything else that you love from 2001 or 2002, it grows, it changes, it evolves. As everything else that I've loved from those years is gone. And even though Poison the Well has grown, aged, matured, they still were able to conjure that old school magic and love, even if it is several decades later. I'm giving Peace in Place an 87, and this would have been higher if my best friend Dickweed was still alive to enjoy this album with me. But he's not, so an 85 it is. We just finished March, a quarter of 2026 is gone. What did you discover? What did I miss? What do I need to hear? Did I get anything right? My wife constantly tells me I get nothing right. Most importantly, thanks for hanging out with me. You could be anywhere else in the world, but you're right here with me, and I appreciate it.